5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And you know I had to tell him. Yeah. The earth is flat. Bro, you need to check your facts. I got high up through the roof. And I landed on the moon. The moon flat too. In reality, everything is just in 2D. Like a video game from 1983. I'm side scrolling up and down the street while y'all sleep. Call me B.O.B. cause I don't see the curve. Messing up my vibe, yeah, you got a lot of nerve. Read a book, nah, I don't wanna learn. Read a book, nah, I don't wanna learn. They say that we archaic. For me and my homies, we don't say it, we just spray it. I'ma leave it, namaste. Do your research, how much I gotta say it. Earth is flat. Bro, you need to check your facts. I got high up through the roof. And I landed on the moon. The moon flat too. In reality, everything is just in 2D. Like a video game from 1983. I'm side scrolling up and down the street while y'all sleep. Y'all sleep. Y'all sleep.
How you doing? I'm Mikey J, and thank you for tuning into KGUP Presents. This episode is 13 of season 3, which is happening right now. I'm going to go ahead and move along because I want to introduce our guest because I'm super excited to bring him on. For the first 40 years of his life, and like many of us, we've discovered that there is a creator. Like I met many of us, we were asleep, but since he's awoken, he's been very vocal about the truth of our world. He's been on dozens of shows, speaking engagements around the plane to educate the masses about health and nutrition and alternative history, free energy, knowing our freedoms and rights as a human being, exposing the new world order. And you might have seen him on the latest film by Hibbler Productions called Level. Please welcome Dave Murphy, also known as Allegedly Dave. How's it going, Dave?
It's going good. Thanks very much for having me on.
Yeah, thanks. Well, thanks for coming on the show. I wanted to open up with kind of like a story of, your journey to becoming a flat earther, because it seems to be that's where we all kind of begin, especially with your introduction, because you're kind of like a flat earth hero. You're a pioneer. At least you're a hero to me.
Okay. All right. Well, I started just like many of us who got into it by accident. I was researching some totally unrelated topic, and I saw a video, one of those suggestive videos, and it was talking about scientific experiments. And I've always been a sucker for scientific experiments. So, I was going through all these experiments, and some of them, and excuse the car going past, some of them, were really interesting. And one of them was about the Bedford Levels experiment. And I'd never heard of it before. And it introduced to me the curvature calculation, which is 8 inches per mile squared. So you can find out how much the Earth should block a landmark at a particular distance away. So over 6 miles, apparently the blockage would be, it's 25 feet, but 8 inches above the ground, it came out at 16 feet.
Yeah.
Which I thought, hang on a minute, that makes the Earth seem very, very small.
Yeah.
So I was pretty sure I could see landmarks a lot further away than that. So I went down to a particular beach where there was a lighthouse about 12 miles away. Worked out the calculation. I should have not been able to see the first 32 feet of this lighthouse.
Yeah.
But instead, my face right down towards the water, I could see the whole lighthouse right down to where the water met the rocks. So that was it. It launched me into, this feverish research into the shape of our Earth.
Right. Yeah, because back in those days, 2015, 2016, there wasn't a whole lot of people to refer to about information about the the shape of the Earth, and so you've become like one of the originals, to like speak out and be guests on different shows, and like Eric Dubay, he was like the one of the first that I discovered, and then all the videos that kind of like before the censorship. And then I started to see you in a lot of like videos, your take, with like ODD TV. I mean, you've appeared in a lot of his videos, and Mark Sargent and stuff like that. And so
well, I think the one that so I did my very first Flat Earth video back in March of 2015. But the one that basically launched me, I guess, into the limelight was I guess I was the first person to be interviewed on a mainstream TV news station.
Yeah.
But it was in Macedonia, which
oh
is out of the way. But yes, I was invited to Macedonia, and the interview was actually in Macedonian. And so I had somebody speaking into my ear, and I would reply in English.
Yeah.
So what ODD TV did, he took that video, which I didn't think anybody would have any interest in whatsoever, because it's half in Macedonian. Why would anybody want to watch that? Unless you speak Macedonian. So I had no interest in it. But ODD TV took it. He cut out all the Macedonian parts and just had me speaking, my responses. So it kind of looked like I stunned the guy into absolute silence. But
yeah.
no, I didn't. No, he was just, he was just waiting for me to finish speaking, and then he's speaking Macedonian. But everyone's like, "Oh, he stunned him into silence." But no, I didn't. But that was that I found. I actually found that that video appeared and got more views on everyone else's channel but mine.
Oh wow.
Just the way Facebook, YouTube works, I think.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely how it works for me. I mean, at least. So I often hear the question a lot, especially from people that refuse to look outside of like science and like their own religion. Like, why does it matter?
Wow, that's usually question number 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Right. It matters hugely because in order for a very, very small group of people to subjugate, billions of people, the very first thing you've got to do is psychologically weaken them, psychologically diminish them to nothing, essentially. So if you combine the flat Earth or the ball Earth theory with the theory of evolution and the Big Bang theory, well, that reduces us to a microbe crawling around on a speck of dust in a infinite and uncaring universe that came about all by accident. There's no creator, there's no plan, there's no purpose for your life, right? Yeah. So it means that people who have power in this world, whether they have lots of money or property or whatever, they can insert themselves above us and say, you do what I say. Right. Now, if you know that this is a created place and you are chief of the creations here, chief of the creator's creations, and there is a creator, well, you realize that you are one step below the creator and nobody can put themselves in a position above you. So yeah, it was very instrumental in getting us to this situation we are in now, where we have people who are, our masters telling us what to do.
Right. And through your revelation, I mean, went through the first 40 years of your life not even considering that God existed, or I'm not Yeshua or Jehovah, but how was it? How did you transition? I mean, was it very difficult for you to like accept that everything that you've been taught is the lie? Like, how did you like come to the conclusion that there is a creator?
Right. Well, yeah. So 40 years of atheism. I arrived at that because at the age of 13, you know, I got into the Greek gods and the myths and all that, and I was actually I was really interested in that as a child. And then when I got into school, I found out that they were just one set of gods, and there were gods all over the place, you know.
Right.
And I realized that no, this seems like a control system at age 13, and so that was it. No more, nothing to do with it. But the Old Testament, or let's say the Bible, presented itself to me 3 times. So whether it's right or wrong, I came across urine therapy, and somebody told me, you know, it talks about urine therapy in the Old Testament, don't you? I was like, does it? Okay, have a look. And yeah, Proverbs 5:15. Now, there's a lot of people saying it's got nothing to do with it, blah blah blah, but it doesn't matter, because it was what got me to go have a look at this book. Okay, but it wasn't enough for me to actually read it.
Yeah.
So the second time was when I got into flat Earth, and somebody said, you know, the Bible's a flat Earth book, don't you? I was like, is it? So had a look again, and sure enough, it's a flat Earth book. So the third time was, when I found out that King James was a black man. I was like, no, it can't be, because I've seen the portrait in the National Portrait Gallery, and no, he's a white guy. So I found a book, and I think it was a 1611 King James Bible, and it had an engraving of him, and sure enough, he was a black guy. So when something presents itself to me 3 times, I usually take that as a sign that I've got to take a closer look at it. So I read through the book, all the way through, cover to cover, 3 times, and for reasons why I might go into later, I thought, no, the New Testament doesn't fit. So I decided to research the Old Testament, and I was absolutely shocked at what I found. So I spent the last 5 years researching the Old Testament.
Very nice. Yeah, that's been one of the fascinating topics that I've uncovered during this like whole journey of, discovering the shape of our earth is the Moorish paradigm. And it seems to me, because I've been listening to a various number of people who like Michelle Gibson, and a lot of her research is like indicating that we did have one race, and it covered the entire world. And there was an event that happened, and there was a division of the nation states, and how that's where, everyone started to become divided. But the original race of our world, everybody was like either one color or one, everybody looked alike, basically.
Yep. Yeah.
And
there was one template for humans, and it was, brown skin, black hair, black woolly hair, and right. Brown eyes, and that was it. There was no variation at all.
Yeah, it seems to be like there was like racial harmony, and then everyone was united and connected through this grid system, and we had free energy. Everything was like peaceful. And then, where do you think everything was divided, and how everything came about? Because there's like different viewpoints of how everything changed. And the one person, her theory was that over a period of 600 years, that's how the white man was created. But there's so many different takes on how the evolution of like race came about. What do you think?
Okay, well, having studied the Old Testament and the books that were taken out of it, so the Book of Enoch, Book of Jasher, and Book of Jubilees, there's no doubt there's no doubt where all this came from. In the Old Testament, there's essentially one or two lines in there, Genesis 6:4, I think it is, that says, talks about angels coming down, having sex with women, and essentially corrupting the human gene pool,
Right.
with half celestial, half human offspring called the Nephilim. Now, Christian dogma says, no, that's the sons of Seth and the wicked daughters of Cain, or whatever, some made up stuff. But you go to the book of Enoch, and it literally says, no, it's angels, and here are their names. And this is what they taught mankind, and in detail. So there's no doubt about what happened. So essentially, when you say about free energy and all that stuff, you're kind of mixing two topics here, I think. The free energy came from, I think, previous civilizations, because when you read the Old Testament carefully, looking at the Hebrew as well, you'll kind of discover that the story of the Old Testament is essentially the last 7,000 years of Earth's history. And there were more civilizations that happened before, but the Old Testament isn't concerned with it. Literally everybody from those civilizations was utterly destroyed, and it started again. Okay. And when you combine that with this new information about that came out of Flat Earth, I don't know if you've come across it, Lost History of Flat Earth.
Oh yeah, that's a great video.
It's amazing. It's jaw-dropping, really, in its conclusions. So I think there were lots of previous civilizations, and there was this worldwide civilization whose buildings we see all around us, and they unlocked the secret of free energy, which I don't think is a secret. It's only a secret from us. And we've been given a kind of a fake version of science and what energy is. So we don't look at the fact that if you stick a wire 250 foot in the air, you're going to pull in energy. Yeah. That's it. Very, 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 very simple. But these previous civilizations honed that knowledge, that very simple knowledge, into something very streamlined. So that's one side of it. But as I said, the Old Testament is concerned with the last 7,000 years of Earth's history, and we're coming up to the end of the 6,000 years of that history. And so the fallen angels, came, impregnated, women with this Nephilim bloodline, and essentially corrupted the bloodline so much that the earth had become so wicked. That's why the Most High had to wipe it clean. And Noah apparently was the only one who had, the original blueprint for Adam. Essentially, he was the only one who wasn't corrupted by this bloodline. But it doesn't say that his wife wasn't corrupted. And it turns out that his wife, or if not one of his wives, was Nama of the bloodline of Cain.
Wow.
So that bloodline made it the other side of the flood. And so it also means that Noah's sons were corrupted. And a week before the flood, Noah had to find wives for his 3 sons from the corrupted stock. So all those bloodlines made it to the other side of the flood through the DNA. Okay, so it wasn't going to be as potent as what happened in the first place with the incursion of the fallen angels, but still that bloodline made it to the other side. So that's why you get giants on the other side of the flood. So if you read Genesis post-flood, you'll see that the Most High is he's manipulating bloodlines. He's basically saying, okay, out of my 3 sons, Shem's bloodline is going to be the chosen one, because it was the most human. Okay.
Mhm.
And then from Shem's children, let's go. It's Arphaxad. He's the one. Well, he's not the one, but it's his line that continues until you get another chosen one, Abraham. And then Abraham had lots and lots of children, but only the child with Sarah was the chosen one, Isaac. And then Isaac had 2 sons, and that was a turning point. Isaac's sons, Esau and Jacob, well, the fallen angel seed was concentrated in Esau, because the Old Testament and the book of Joshua describe him as wicked and deceitful and designing. So the fallen angel DNA was concentrated in him and absent in Jacob, which is why all of Jacob's offspring were now chosen. So it's a very careful sifting of the bloodlines, and essentially what you got. And again, loads of cars going past. I'm really sorry.
No, I don't even hear them.
Oh, don't you? Okay, that's
No.
good. So what you've got is a combination of 2 things. So as I said, Esau kind of embodied the whole DNA of the fallen angels, and he is described as essentially as a Caucasian, red hair, and the hair was straight, because when Rebecca was dressing Jacob up as Esau, she put goat skins on him, not lamb skin. So no, he had straight hair. That, and the fact that in Deuteronomy it tells that the Canaanites who were left in the land would be cursed with leprosy, which means skin turning white. Right.
Oh.
So the Canaanites left in the land were leprous, and so they were white. And you had Esau, who was a red-haired man. So that's leprosy plus some melanin, because if you remove melanin altogether from somebody, you get blonde hair, blue eyes, lack of melanin in the hair and the eyes, and in the skin. So you get very, very pale skin. If you add a bit of melanin to blonde hair, you get red hair. Yeah. If you add a little melanin to blue eyes, you get green eyes. Yeah. You add a little melanin to very, very pale skin, you get kind of reddish skin. Yeah. So Esau, when he married of the Canaanites. So you end up with a Caucasian type person, which would, according to history, would be called a Turkic type people.
Wow.
But they became the Caucasians. And if you really, really sort of study the book, you'll find the origins of all the nations that you find today, which, when I've explained it, I've really pissed off a few people.
Yeah. I mean, anybody who's been indoctrinated with the official stories, especially from the Ice Age and how people originated from, one little region of Africa. And then, we're expected to believe that race of people just kind of migrated all over the world. And that's how everybody kind of like evolved from that one tribe of people. I mean, that's the official, if you go to like Discovery, the Discovery Channel, I mean, that's their official version of how the world populated the earth.
Right. But what you've got to understand is nothing you get from the official mainstream, whether it's education or television or movies or whatever, everything is essentially bullshit. It's made up. No, it's made up bullshit. Yeah. To give you a false impression of the truth. Yeah. No, of course we didn't all come from Africa. Wait a minute, there was a worldwide flood, which can't be denied. There was a worldwide flood, and everybody who lives now descended from three boys, who landed in Turkey.
Yeah.
right? So there was no Africa involved at that point. So this idea that we evolve, no, we don't evolve. Yeah, we make adaptations, but not, that we change into anything else. You don't get, a dark-skinned man go to a cold climate and then turn white. No, that doesn't happen. Yeah, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Right? So no. You get white people go to Africa and they just get redder and redder.
Yeah.
No, they don't turn black. They just no. So the world and people don't act like that. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. And when you can, as because I've only been a flat earther for the past like year and a half, like maybe a year and 18 months, almost the entire.
Congratulations, because of the censorship, you must have worked really hard to find this stuff. So
Yeah, and fortunately, I discovered everything at the beginning of 2020, about the end of 2019, and then I started to notice the censorship was starting to happen around August of last year, and I'm very thankful that I was able to receive the information that was available, because everybody's just been silenced and stuff has just been deleted, channels been wiped out, and I'm surprised that you haven't been shut down. I mean, have you experienced any censorship at all?
Yeah, most of my videos have been taken down, and I keep realizing they've taken others down without telling me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went onto my, I think you've got like a dashboard behind the scenes, and I'm starting to see, red X's everywhere, deleted.
Wow.
But I'm
Crazy.
I'm trying to put them back up on BitChute and Odyssey.
Yeah. You're recently on the movie level. How was your experience with that film? And did you have any like backlash from it or anything like that?
Actually, no. I mean, the trolls were relatively few this time.
Yeah.
I was just getting some such positive feedback from it. Yeah, I personally, I think it could have been done slightly differently, because what I didn't like was the kind of sneering, at, we don't have to sink to that level, sneering at the mainstream and saying,
Right.
calling Neil deGrasse Tyson out, okay, we don't have to descend to that. We can just present stuff and let people make their own minds up. And I think in the level, I think we put a strong case there together.
Right.
I did submit other stuff for level that didn't get in there. So on my channel, you find the next level where I just put in all the stuff that I didn't get into level. But yeah, there's enough stuff for people to grasp the topic.
Yeah. I feel like it's a great way of like introducing people to the flat earth community, because it is a little aggressive how the movie kind of like it's there's this like war mentality, like we have to do something now and we all have to band together, otherwise you're an idiot if you don't do this. And that's kind of like the mentality that the opposing view is like, if you don't believe that the earth is a globe, then you're an idiot. So you're kind of like, it's back and forth and you don't really get anywhere, and everybody just kind of stays in their stance.
Yeah, that's exactly what I feel, really. It's we didn't need to do that, but so be it. And it was a good documentary, very good documentary. And Sean Hibbler does a really good job when he puts these things together.
Right. So what kind of stuff are you doing right now? Like I went on your website, allegedlydave.com, and you're all over the place. I mean, you have all these speaking engagements. What kind of stuff are you letting people know about?
Actually, right now, what seems to be incredibly popular, which I understand, is common law. I think people are starting to wake up and realize that they don't seem to have any choice in this world, and there's no justice. They don't understand the law, and they're starting to realize that they're being bamboozled by it.
Right.
And what I teach, and I literally, I've done, I don't know, 6 talks in about a month now. I think people are realizing that, or what I'm teaching is essentially how to say no, realizing what is actually going on, and
Right.
and how you're being tricked, and then it empowers you to say no. So
Right.
if I can give an example, like if you get a bank loan, for instance,
Mhm.
you think you've been brainwashed into believing that, when you say get a loan for $10,000 or whatever, the bank moves some gold from here to there, or print some money or move some notes, from one place to another, and now you've got 10,000 in your account. You work, you spend the money, you work your bottom off to try and get that money back and pay them back with interest.
Right.
It doesn't work like that.
No, not at all.
And when you look into it, it's like, no, it's a con trick. So what actually happens is, when you sign that loan agreement, you create what's known as a promissory note, that you promise to pay 3 times the amount usually, and they take that note and cash it. They literally type into your account $10,000, and that's it. They haven't given you anything. They're just giving you credit within their banking system. So other banks will recognize those digits in your account, and everyone will play along as if it's real. But then you actually use your physical sweat equity. You sweat and use up all your energy, for most of your life, trying to get these dollars to pay them back. And if you don't, then they take your stuff.
Yeah.
It's a trap. It's a trick. So once you show them that the trick, then you can bypass the whole thing, and you can stop paying them, stop being tricked by them.
Right. It's a big con.
Yeah.
That's why they call it a contract.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And with contracts, we're trapped into contracts all the time, and we've got no idea. But the power that you've got is that you have exactly the same power as the people writing the contract.
Right.
So I tell the story of when I came back to England. I had to open a bank account, and the bank gave me an application form to fill in, and they said, just sign there and give it back to us, and we'll open your account. I said, actually, I'm going to take it home, and I'm going to come back tomorrow. So I took it home, I read through it, and there were some things I didn't like about this contract, a few charges that I didn't like. So I crossed them out, and initialed them. And I didn't do this, but I should have. There might have been a few things that I wanted into that contract, so I would have written them in and then initialed them. So once I'd finished, I folded it all back up, went into the bank the next day and handed it in. And just like they expected me to sign it without reading it, they accepted it without reading it. So about a year later, when my balance dipped for a microsecond below zero, they said, £30 charge. I said, well, I'm not paying it. They said, you have to. I said, no, I don't. They said, yes, you do. I said, it's not in our contract. They said, yes, it is. I said, go and have a look.
Right.
And about a few days later, I got a letter saying, we're not going to charge you for that.
Yeah. I used to do loans back in the day, before the first collapse in 2008. Well, it's not the first, but you could write an affidavit if you didn't agree with something in the contract. You could write something I mean, we would never like tell them like you could do this, but some people were very, aware of how contract law was, and they would write stipulations, and then, our loan underwriters would just sign it without really understanding. But if you knew your rights and you didn't want to give up, a certain number of rights, so like the mineral rights, and they said, well, in the contract, I want to own the mineral rights, and if the underwriter signed it and agreed to it, you own those mineral rights. So, but a lot of people didn't really understand contract law, and then they would just sign and sign it away. But if you were very knowledgeable and you're privy to do that, I mean, you could get away with it easily.
Which is why we are educated.
Right.
Education isn't to uplift us. It's to make us standardized slaves who don't know anything. You don't teach slaves anything. Yeah.
Right.
You teach them just how to operate the simple machines and do the simple paperwork, and that's it. Yeah. So no, they don't want you to know how this works. They want you to know how money works.
No.
It's the most important thing for a child to learn, yet they don't teach it at school. There's got to be a disconnect there somewhere, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I saw a video. You were at one of the science exhibits or laboratories, or I don't know where you were, but it looked like
museum.
Yeah, like a science museum, a natural science museum, and it looked like one of the ones that I visited when I was young. And that's like the beginning of our indoctrination, and because we're so impressionable at a young age, especially before the age of 8. And so when you see like the globe and you see the way that space is constructed by NASA, we just automatically, that's our foundation. So we just believe everything that's presented to us.
And I think I did in that video. I stood there watching a whole group of like 7 or 8 year olds around this animated globe, and I was saying, there's your indoctrination right there. The teacher saying, you live here, and the kids go, hey, it's brilliant. That's it. Right at the beginning.
I mean, I was one of those kids, and like, just in awe because of everything was like in our face. I mean, they made everything a ball, and the whole universe is all the planets in the solar system are all balls. And so you just, it becomes a reality when you see it in person, even though it's not reality, but we think it is.
Yeah. As you said, before the age of 7, everything that you take in, everything that you're told, you take in as absolute truth. Yeah. And it becomes a foundation of your reality, which is why it's so hard for some people to let go of the ball,
Right. Yeah, that's why it's important for, in 6th grade, you always go to science camp, and you do the most traveling and going to museums, and it just reinforces everything that's being taught. And, so when you're 20 years old or 24 or 30, 40 years old, I mean, you just don't believe anything because of that trip.
Oh no, you don't even give it a second thought, because now it's the foundation of your reality. Yeah. Why would you look at, look at the air you breathe, it's there, and you don't have to give it a second thought anymore,
Yeah.
And that's it. So when you start challenging a person's foundational reality, that's when you get the, I guess, very exaggerated responses, usually anger,
Right. Yeah, people get really defensive when you challenge what they've been taught.
Yeah. And it's funny that when you look at a flat earther and a ball earther interacting, you will see the anger come from the ball earther, not the flat earther. The flat earther is usually very calm and, trying to explain something.
Exactly.
And it's exactly the same as somebody who's been vaccinated talking to somebody who hasn't been vaccinated and won't get vaccinated. Same thing.
Yeah.
The unvaccinated person will be calm, trying to explain something, and you'll get anger and hatred from the vaccinated person. So yeah, it's the same way. There's a correlation there. I don't know exactly what though.
Belief is very powerful, and if you're watching TV, like I haven't watched like any mainstream television since January, and my mind just feels more clear. I don't have any confusion. I know what's fact. I only look at fact. And if I see or hear something and I can't verify it, then that's when I question the information that I'm hearing. But if you're watching TV all the time, those frequencies that's coming from those channels are they're just changing the way that you think. So you're not really thinking for yourself.
Exactly. And I haven't watched TV now for 15 years.
Wow.
And I don't miss it.
I'm sure you feel great.
Yeah. In fact, stepping back a second, one thing I noticed is that there isn't a single flat earther that I've ever come across who has been fooled by the COVID stuff. I think flat Earth came along exactly the right time. It came along to burst people's bubbles about this world. If they can lie to you about where you live, they can lie to you about everything and anything, and they have. So sorry, I went on a bit of an aside there. I forgot what you asked me.
Well, I found it very interesting that flat Earth and the awakening, everything just seemed to happen all at the same time. And prior to like 2015 or 2014, there was like no talk of it at all. I mean, I'm just curious why people, why all of a sudden the huge change,
This is the time, again, spoken of in the Old Testament as the apocalypse, which means the great revealing of truth. And, we started to see that revealing of truth, over the last, I don't know, 2, maybe 3 decades. There's just truth started coming at us. I really think 2001, 9/11 was a big turning point. And it was like, okay, 9/11 happened. It maybe took us a year or so to realize, or maybe a couple more years to realize, hang on, there was something fishy about that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then there was 7/7, in England. And it was like a couple of months, people were going, oh, no, there's something fishy about it. And then, Sandy Hook came along, and it was like almost immediately, and it was a speeding up of knowledge and understanding what's going on around us. And I think that's, I think flat Earth came along in the middle of that apocalypse, that revealing of truth. And again, the Old Testament's right there, where it's like, when knowledge has increased and people running to and fro, that kind of describes where we are now, doesn't it?
Yeah, I remember, the Sandy Hook incident. The one thing that threw me off was watching people walk in. There was like a whole group of people, probably 20 or 30 people, and they were all like circulating in this circle, and they were walking in and out, and and they were showing it on the news. And if you weren't paying attention, you would never notice that the same people were just walking in and out in this continuous circle. And I was like, what are they doing?
Yeah, I know. And then Robbie Parker, that was one for me, Robbie Parker laughing on the way to the mic, and then getting himself ready to make this emotional appeal,
Obviously he was an actor. Obviously, because no person who just lost their kids would be acting that way. They would probably wouldn't even be on television because they couldn't even keep their composure.
Well, not only that, lost their kid the day before.
Yeah.
That's like a fresh wound. I mean, that's not human behavior. No. That's an actor or a psychopath. Right.
Yeah, definitely a psychopath if that was really his kids.
Yeah, exactly. And then you start finding that the kids who died are appearing at other places,
Yeah. Oh,
and dying in other things.
And then the Super Bowl, the following, the Super Bowl after the incident, and they just magically appeared in their face. I mean, they were growing up, but you could tell that they were the same kids. And then, of course, Alex Jones was ridiculed for those statements. And when you looked at the evidence for yourself, you're like, oh wow, he was right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think just as Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage, and we're starting to realize that we were born in Disney World. We've got this troupe of actors, performing in front of us, and we take it like it's the real world,
Yeah. So was it, part of your awakening, was it 9/11 or was it?
Yes.
I mean, that was like the most televised event, so it was hard not to look at it from all angles.
Well, I was able to see it from a different angle because I was there. I literally turned down a job in Tower 1 on the 40th floor with the Lehman Brothers, literally a month before. And instead I took a job across the water in Hoboken, literally right across from it.
Wow.
So I watched it from a pier.
That's crazy.
And I didn't really, to be honest, see it as, anything unusual until about 4 years later. I was helping my daughter with physics homework, and it dawned on me that it couldn't have happened the way they said it did.
Wow. It's crazy that you mentioned Lehman Brothers, because they were like, the last puzzle of the whole corruption. And once they went down, the entire system went down, because they were like the last of the subprime lenders, or was part of the scam.
Well, again, I it's going to sound silly, but I feel like I've been led by the Most High to witness and experience certain things, so that my illusions about this world could be destroyed and laid the way open for finding the Most High. Okay, so I was at 9/11. I was there in New York for the internet crash, and not just in there, but there was a documentary being filmed about the internet crash while it was happening. Okay, called startup.com, and they were filming in the company that I was working for. So it was like, I was right there in the middle of it. I was also right in the middle of the financial crash, because I was working for Standard & Poor's at the time.
Wow.
And they asked me to write a system to manage collateralized debt obligations and credit default swaps, the things that caused the crash in the first place.
Yep.
So they had to explain to me how they worked so that I could write the system to manage them. And when they explained it to me, I was like, okay, this is going to go downhill very quickly. And if you see the film The Big Short, have you seen that one?
Yeah.
Well, imagine being one of those guys, but not having a couple of $1 billion in a hedge fund to play with. And that was me. I saw everything that they saw ahead of time, but I didn't have a hedge fund or anything. I didn't have money, and I couldn't capitalize on it. So I just knew it was going to happen, and that's why I'm back in England.
Wow. Well, even when I worked in the industry, you could kind of see the collapse coming, because it wasn't sustainable.
No.
I mean, all the turning heads of the people were just being loaned who didn't really had no business getting a loan. These negative amortization loans and stuff. I mean, it was just absolutely nuts.
I was seeing in a town I lived in a little town in New Jersey, and I was seeing my neighbors getting like beach houses and 2 or 3 beach houses and new cars and everything. I got myself a new car, a flash car, and then everybody else got one, and it was like I had to really work to get this, and everybody was like, oh, he's got a new car, I better have one. So it was like, how are they doing this? No, so yeah, I could see it was gonna go down, and I had to get out of there because it didn't seem like a place to stay.
No, and there was no long term. And even after the crash, I mean, I tried to continue the business, and it was just so difficult because everybody was still looking for the, the no proof of income type loans, and I'm like, that doesn't exist anymore. And
What do you mean after the crash? The crash is still happening.
Yeah.
It started in 2008, and it's still happening now.
Yeah.
They've just pumped so much money in it, so it's happening in slow motion.
Right.
So no, the system crashed in 2008, and it's still crashing.
Right. Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, and then they're just keeping all of us distracted by, the garbage that's on television. Like, I can't watch any of it because the moment that I detect any kind of narrative, I can't watch it anymore.
Yeah, I'm with you. Well, I haven't watched TV in 15 years. Every so often I'm at somebody's house and I've got it on, but I don't class that as watching it. But I can't watch films anymore because now the propaganda in every film is
so
now
bad,
overwhelming. It's like they start with the propaganda and then they build a film around it.
Yeah.
It's like no, I can't watch it. It's just if it's not lots of death and sex and and identity politics, it's no, I can't watch anything.
Right. So some of the things that you teach, I mean, you can go to, on your website, I mean, you can have you speak on different topics, including like being, self-sufficient and health. What are some of the other things that you cover in your
okay.
Speaking engagements?
One of my favorite talks is about human potential. The video is called Telepathy in the Complete Human. And essentially I just awaken people to our hidden potential, and we've got a whole load more senses than just 5. We've got a whole lot more abilities than we're aware of, and I highlight things that happen to people, which means if they can happen to somebody because they had a stroke or they got bashed on the head or a couple of wires crossed somewhere, and then they have these amazing abilities, that means these abilities are latent in us.
Right.
But we just don't know how to access them. And actually there are ways of accessing them that other people have found, so I talk about that. So there's that. I talk about languages, actually. There's a video called The Language of Creation, where I found out reading the Old Testament that the whole earth spoke one language, and it was called Paleo-Hebrew, and it was the language that the Most High conversed with Adam with, and what the Most High used to create the universe with. And I show how we lost that language, the Tower of Babel incident. And the fact that as you come into this world, you speak Paleo-Hebrew. And because of the Tower of Babel incident, you come into this world speaking the language, and then you find that your parents can't speak the language, so you have to learn their language. And you'll find that this language, Paleo-Hebrew, is completely different from the languages that we speak in this world today. That we have to, we understand in the left-hand side of our brain, right? And we have to guess at what somebody means. So when you speak to me, I'm continuously guessing at what you're saying to me.
Right.
And 9 times out of 10, if we actually started comparing notes about what you said to me, I'll have a completely different view to what you actually meant.
Right.
But the language that our original language, comes from here, comes from your heart. You understand it, you know it. It's intuitive. Okay. I do this example a lot, so I'm going to do it again with you, I guess. So you might have heard it if you've seen some of my videos. So I'm going to give you a little demonstration of what the difference is between, if you don't mind, that is.
Oh no, of course not.
So the difference between English and Paleo-Hebrew. Okay. So I'm going to describe a film to you in English. And you have to tell me what the film is. Okay.
Okay.
A man on the autistic spectrum recounts his life to strangers. What's the film?
Recounts his life to strangers. Oh goodness. I don't know.
A man on the autistic spectrum recounts his life to strangers. Any ideas? Any?
I can't remember. I'm picturing Russell Crowe.
Oh, so A Beautiful Mind.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm not going to tell if you're right, but what happened there when I was describing the film to you, in the left-hand side of your brain, you started listening to the sounds I was making, fetching the meanings of those sounds, right, and then comparing them to a list of films you'd seen.
That's why I was looking to my left.
Yeah, and you had to guess. You guessed at Beautiful Mind. Yeah, other people have guessed at Rain Man and Forrest Gump and a couple of others. Yeah.
Oh, Forrest Gump.
Right. So I'm going to tell you the same film in Paleo-Hebrew. Okay.
Okay.
So Paleo-Hebrew is a language of pictures, and so I'm going to use emojis. Okay. So, man running, a few trees, a park bench, a box of chocolates, a shrimp, and a boat. What's the film?
Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump. And I knew you knew it, yeah? Right.
That's funny.
The difference there is when I started describing the pictures, right, the left-hand side of your brain couldn't get involved because it was pictures. Your left-hand side of your brain cannot analyze pictures, yeah?
Right.
It can analyze language, but not pictures. So it was cut out of the process, yeah? So you were imaging the pictures, and all of a sudden, you knew what the film was.
Right.
There was no doubt. Yeah, it can't mean Beautiful Mind. It can't mean Rain Man. It can only mean one thing, one film. Yeah.
Right.
And I could have given you those pictures in any order. Yeah. And you would have still known it was Forrest Gump for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. When you describe this, I'm picturing like the Egyptians, because the hieroglyphics. I mean, they painted a lot of pictures in their historical.
Right. Yes. But hieroglyphics came from Paleo-Hebrew. And I can show, in that video, I show how Paleo-Hebrew, where Paleo-Hebrew was on the map, and then how it spread out. And you can see that all languages west of Israel, the languages became symbolic, right, and abstract. So all the letters didn't mean anything; they were just shapes. Yeah. But you go east of that area, all the letters of the languages retain that pictorial view. So Sanskrit, Chinese, Arabic, they're all pictograms, right? And so you can see how it's all pointing towards one place, one starting place, and it all spread out from there. Yeah. So yeah, that's a talk on languages, and yeah, it's one that fascinates me. So I get really into it. So
I mean, that's very fascinating because it's easier to understand. You know.
Yeah. So the revelation that babies speak a language was amazing. Anyway, I also talk about the Old Testament and what I found out and who the Israelites are and all that sort of thing. I speak about alternative health, how to heal yourself of anything with nothing. What else do I talk about? Obviously, common law, I mentioned before. Just anything that I find in the world that is essentially a lie. And I start to look at it and I find the truth underneath. So whatever I discover, I share.
Have you heard of Queen Valeria Renita? She
No, I
talks
haven't.
about Moorish law and common law and how, your only true form of being detached from today's law is to understand your Moorish background. And if they're like the last of the sovereign people of the world. And, she has this like whole hour and a half lecture, and she talks about how you can, be ahead of, like, if you're ever in court of law, to understand the language and know where you are as a human being, that, like your silence is more powerful than the language that they speak, and that it's easy to be tricked into like the city ordinances and, today's laws. And that the more that you're knowledgeable about common law, you can protect yourself.
Uh, Absolutely, I'd agree with that. That the more you know about, this common law and also how their system, the system of contract law of the sea, admiralty law. If you understand how that works, you can apply common law and stand in your own sovereignty and actually retain your sovereignty, because this legal system is all about trying to trick you to give
Right.
away your sovereignty and accept to become a legal fiction. The thing that I don't agree with is this whole focus on Moors. I'm not a Moor. I'm not descended from Moors. Moors are a particular type of people that has nothing to do with me, apart from the fact that the word Moor was synonymous with black, and
Right.
so it was retroactively, in a lot of cases, applied to black people. Even before there were actual Moors.
Okay.
So no. Again, us being Moors is just another red herring, just like us being Egyptians. It certainly is. We're not
Right.
Egyptians; we were the slaves of Egyptians. So no, I don't really go along with that idea. But the whole common law thing, yeah, great. But I wouldn't ever try and use Moorish law or anything like that, because it doesn't apply to me.
Yeah. The part of me thinks that, it's part of like categorizing people into a certain way of thinking, because, all of racism and like the way that we think, it's all based on categorization of people. And, you just have this like, bias against individuals instead of, just being human. So.
Right. But okay. Again, when you read the book, you'll find out that okay, there are people here who are not quite human. They're hybrids. Okay, they're the ones who rule this earth right now.
Right.
And they essentially mixed with and were confederate with all other nations against one nation. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's why you can go to any country in the world, and right in the lowest social strata of that country, you'll find black people. And doesn't matter where you go, right? You'll find them, and they're all treated the same way. They're all sort of people keep them in derision, and they can't get jobs, and they can't, they all have the same experience. And it's because all these nations made a confederacy to keep this one nation down. It says it in Psalm 83, I believe.
Yeah, that's why I love talking to people like yourself, because I'm constantly learning about truth and where everything originated. So listening to different viewpoints, it kind of just clarifies certain things, because we're all learning. We're all learning where we come from, and the official stories are just propaganda to make us confused, honestly.
Yeah, and that lost history of flat Earth was, I say, it's a big revelation. And I absolutely believe it to be true, because it makes sense to me that that we would have a map somewhere available to us.
You look at the moon.
Yeah, and the fact that it rotates and changes orientation depending on where you are would again mean that there must be a calculation or a formula or a very simple rule that you can go look up and go, oh, there I must be there.
Yeah.
Based on where you look up and where how the thing's rotated, you can be able to go, okay, that means I'm right there.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense. And the whole idea of our Earth just being a pond melted out of a greater Earth, and that pond is literally moving around, which it explains ice ages.
Yeah.
It explains how continents appear and disappear.
Yeah.
And it explains this phenomena of these buildings, these cities.
Yeah.
That are obviously well more advanced than cities that we can build, there's all these cities waiting for us under the ice,
Yeah.
And I think it's the book of Jasher. It talks about somebody striking out and wanting to seize a city. It didn't say build a city. To seize a city, take a city for themselves, as if there's cities lying about somewhere,
Yeah.
Which again sounds like what this video was talking about. So
Right.
yeah, it really intrigues me, and I think it ties in not only to the biblical history, because what if the Garden of Eden isn't literally not available to us because it's not part of our Earth at the moment?
Yeah.
It again makes sense to me that the way that we're dependent on a compass means that we're trapped in that puddle. We can't navigate anywhere else outside of that puddle, because east and west is just a circle around the North Pole, and
Right.
from wherever you are, if you head north, you'll get to this North Pole area, and then everywhere south from there. So you can't get out of this circle, you know, just like you can't escape from a ball.
Right. My wife and I, we were on our way we were traveling from Cleveland, Ohio, and then that video had premiered, the Ewar Annan video, and it just had us looking at everything from a different perspective, because all these old ancient buildings, like the cathedrals and the churches, now we look at them as like, well, they were made out of iron oxide. They all had the crosses at the top of the buildings, which were to attract energy from the ether. And it's like, it makes so much sense how the iron oxide was used to retain some of that energy, and that before they put the glass around the sound chambers, I can't remember the name of it, but they would project music to heal people in the city. And that, all these cities were just designed a certain way to be able to distribute that energy. So it all made perfect sense.
Yeah. The only thing I disagreed with in that video was where he showed pictures of these empty cities. Yeah. So he shows these pictures, and there'd be like a horse standing in one corner, but no people. Yeah.
Right.
The only problem I have with that is that in the days of back in those days in photography was like, you would set up your camera, you'd take off the lens cap for 7 or 8 minutes, and then put the lens cap back on.
I did think of that.
Yeah, if you moved at any time in that 7 minutes, you wouldn't appear on it. It was only things that stayed still for that length of time would show up.
Right.
So that's why you see I think you see a fuzzy image where the people would be. It's kind of just like a fuzzy image. And it's literally it could be, I'm not saying it is, but it could be, there's people walking around, but they're walking around too fast to be caught by the shutter the very primitive shutter. And as the camera technology got better, then the shutter speeds got quicker so that they could capture more people.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with you, because we used to, when I was in photography in high school, we had these old cameras where you look down and then they would take black and white photos. And if you were photographing something that was moving, you couldn't capture it because you needed a certain number of seconds for that object to stand perfectly still. So that makes perfect sense why no one was in those pictures, because everybody was moving.
I'm not saying that that's true. It's just something that occurred to me, and it would explain why you'd see these empty cities, and then later on you'd start seeing more and more people. I don't know, but it's a possibility. So I don't normally just go along with something, if I can find a rational explanation for it.
Yeah, but definitely all those structures and buildings, I mean, they were all torn down and burnt down to hide the pre-existence of that civilization, because none of those buildings were temporary. I mean, how can you have 300,000 people in the stands if it's a temporary structure?
Right. Yeah. How those World's Fairs where you'd see these essentially a massive city all lit up with all this power. I think they literally came across this city, right? Maybe dug a bit of it out of the mud, right? And then realized, oh, the power's still on.
Yeah.
And in order to hide it, they just open it all up and say, it's the World's Fair, have a look at all this. And then at the end of it, then they can legitimately destroy it all and say, oh, we just built it for the World's Fair, And it would only take a generation or two of people who realize that they found it, to die off, and then all memory of it's gone,
Right. Yeah, I don't know if you've come across this kid. His name is Parker Edmonton, and he's this little genius. He's probably in high school still. I don't know. And he recreated the whole Tesla coil in his backyard. So,
oh, wow. Right.
And he's just using copper wires. He's coiling everything. He's got this spherical thing in his backyard, and he's able to turn on a switch, and he's grabbing power from the ether. So he's replicating this whole energy system, and I find it very fascinating. And
oh, wow. I've not heard of him. What was the name again?
Parker Edmonton.
Okay.
He goes by Dr. Parker, I think, on TikTok. Yeah, okay. I just came across him by accident, and I follow his channel on YouTube, and he's like a little genius, and he's his fascination is everything that's before 1920. And
I'm finding that when I'm researching history, I will not look at anything sort of later than 1930. I'll look at things from the 1700s, 1800s, but early 1900s, but nothing newer, because it's going to be bullshit. I think they made a concerted effort to hide stuff late 1800s and early 1900s,
right,
in preparation for this moment.
Yeah. I mean, I was just watching the interview with Eric Dubay, and he made a statement about Hitler and the Holocaust, and that got taken down because it was against the narrative. And they had to delete it out in order to re-upload the video. But that's just kind of one example of how our history is so hidden that they're willing to protect it at all costs just to keep us asleep.
Yeah, I don't know enough about Hitler and what Eric Dubay found out. But one interesting thing is one of his programs that he had initiated was called Lebensborn, and it was essentially he collected together the blondest blue-eyed women and sort of made up brothels essentially, and paired them with the blondest blue-eyed males. Essentially, they were saying it to create the Übermensch, the Superman. But again, when you realize that those traits are Nephilim traits, so he was trying to breed out the human and breed in the pure Nephilim again.
Mm.
So just an aside there. That's what I think he was trying to do.
Yeah. Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah.
Yeah, because the history has just been so grabbled, and we can't. I can't believe anything that's official, because there's some sort of agenda behind every official story. It's,
well, yeah, you're seeing it. You're seeing it now with this COVID stuff.
oh
because,
yeah.
They'll categorically state something in the beginning, and later on they'll reveal it was a lie, and like 6 months later, oh no, that's not true, and all the stuff that we're coming out with, which is conspiracy theory. A few months later, no, that's Did you know that's how it works?
Right.
It's like it's silly. They're rewriting history as they're going along.
Right. Well, hopefully we'll survive all this, and in 10 years we can look back and say, we were right to oppose this because it was all just a bunch of nonsense.
Well, I think as I said, I think this whole thing has already been written. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the book says that we win in the end, and they're already on their way out.
I hope so.
The revolution will not be televised, so the media is never going to tell us. Right.
We just have to stand firm and stick together and keep speaking the truth, because like last year, I was very hesitant to do this type of show because I was afraid of the ridicule, the negative comments, and putting myself out there was a great risk for me, because we lived in Hollywood and we're a part of that whole, mind control.
Yeah.
It's hard to step away from something that is more honest and forthright. And so now I'm just taking my chance and talking to people like yourself, and I want to get this, information out there and hopefully wake up people before we get taken down, who knows how long YouTube is going to be here.
Yeah. Well, I applaud your willingness to put your head above the parapet.
Yeah. And, a lot of it was, I didn't understand everything to be able to repeat it, because it was all very new to me, and I was still in search of like the answers, and like, there were things about the flat earth that didn't completely make sense to me, but I feel like now I'm in complete understanding. I don't exactly repeat everything the way, a lot of you repeat stuff, but I'm still learning, I'm still a baby truther.
No, you get there. You'll get there.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking the time and meeting with me, and your wisdom is so valued, and a lot. Hopefully, it gets to a lot of people who have never heard of you before, and they reconsider the world that we live in. So I appreciate you coming on the show and talking your mind.
Well, thank you, and you just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, is there anything else you wanted to talk about? Like maybe like a project that you're working on?
Not really, because I guess the projects I'm working on are local, and that we're hoping to export to other localities. So at the moment, I'm just concentrating on local stuff, like peace constables and things to try and challenge the status quo.
Yeah. It's a weird time that we're living in, and we're just trying to not get sucked up into the propaganda, and try not to get locked down and be forced to take certain magic juice, whatever you want to call it.
Well, here's the thing, don't ever worry about that, because it can never ever be mandatory in the way you think of it. Right. It'll always come down to you voluntarily accepting it.
And that's what I've been noticing. And then ultimately, you can't be I mean, I've been watching people getting tackled in Australia and just being forced inoculated right on the spot. But hopefully, it doesn't come down to that. Here.
Well, there's two things about this Australian footage, okay, and two different points of view, as far as I'm concerned, anyway. First of all, you can't always trust stuff that comes out of other countries. Yeah, so we had it recently here, the Indian variant. Okay, so the media was showing us all these horrible scenes of people dying in the streets and stuff.
Right.
Until somebody pointed out it was from a gas leak 2 years ago, the footage they were using. Okay, and the Indian government was saying, no, there's nothing here. There's no such thing as the Indian variant. So then they changed it to the Delta variant and then carried on regardless, you know. So you can't always trust what comes out of other countries. But saying that, if it is true, then my take on how they're getting away with what they're doing in Australia is that Australia started as a penal colony.
Yeah.
And everybody there essentially are the descendants of prisoners.
Yeah.
And prisoners have no rights. So, you know, if they are getting away with doing that, then they're literally, I think that's their justification.
Wow. I hadn't looked at it like that. Wow.
Just what I think, anyways. Might not be true. It's just what I think.
Yeah. In a lot of those videos, I mean, if you really think about it, we don't actually see needles being injected. So, yeah, you'd have to really look at it.
Anything that comes from the mainstream media is going to be lies.
Yeah, true.
Because they want you to be, you know, they want you to feel a sense of hopelessness that, you know, there's no way of getting away from it. So, oh well, I better have it then.
Yeah, you know? I mean, they definitely want us scared. In any way, shape, or form, they want us to be in fear.
Yeah. I actually called this 10 years ago. I've got a video on my channel called Interview with Simon 2010. And in it, I say, well, you know what? They tried to frighten us with the swine flu, but you know what? We all said, no, we don't want this vaccine. But they're not going to stop there. They're going to keep coming at us with something even more frightening. And if that doesn't work, something even more frightening will go along until they frighten us enough to make us take this vaccine. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. And we're almost there.
Almost there. But you know what? As I said, don't be afraid. Don't act in fear. Right? Say no. Yeah. That's it.
That's all we can do.
At the end of the day, you're going to die.
Right. You're
going to die. And, you know, it doesn't matter if you die because somebody holds you down and sticks a needle in your arm, or you trip over a paving stone and hit your head, you know. And it could happen 5 minutes from now. It could happen 50 years from now. You don't know. So there's no point in worrying about death, because that's the one inevitable thing about life.
True. Very true.
So
I often think about that.
Yeah, take that off the table, and now you've got nothing to worry about.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely something to think about, because that's come across my mind, you know, and it's like there's no reason to succumb when, you know, it's really up to your decision, and see what happens. Like, I mean, a lot of companies are going to find alternative ways of dealing with you, and, you know, and placing you somewhere else. And if they are going to fire you, then you get unemployment.
Well, I'm getting a lot of calls from people who saying that, oh, I've got my company is telling me I've got to take this vaccine or else I'm going to lose my job. So I'm sending them my vaccine conditional letter. So conditional acceptance, saying I'm happy to take the vaccine on the condition that you give me this information. And it's 7 or 8 things that a doctor or whoever's trying to push this vaccine on you should be able to give you in all good conscience.
Right.
Yeah, but they can't because it doesn't exist. So,
exactly.
So one of them will be a double-blind, placebo-controlled study that shows the safety and effectiveness of vaccines. They should be able to give it to you. You know, anyone wanting to jab you should say, okay, here's the study that shows it's safe and effective. But they can't because it doesn't exist. Right. So if they can't give you that information, then they're basically saying that they, in their opinion, it's not safe because they can't give you that information. Plus, there's also a liability statement that says I, Dr. Whatever, take full financial and commercial liability for any damage that happens to you after taking this vaccine, which they will not sign.
Right. Yeah.
So it leaves you in a stalemate position because you're saying, I want to take it. I'm happy to take it. As long as you give me this information and sign the liability statement.
Right.
Yeah, and the ball's in their court. They can't hit it back.
Good point. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, you're gonna have to send me that form.
Yeah. Okay. I will do when I get off here.
All right. Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on this show. It was a pleasure and honor. Like, I'm pretty excited that you were able to come on here, and we'll have to see what happens, and hopefully we can talk again, and hopefully under different circumstances, hopefully we can win and come out of this, triumphantly.
Yeah, we will. Don't worry. We will.
Yeah. Yeah. Just got to keep a positive outlook, and, just keep putting that information out there and keep waking people up. That's all we can do.
All we can do.
Yep.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you. All right. You have a good one. Enjoy the rest of your day. Best of luck to you. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much for watching this episode of KGUP Presents. Be sure to follow Dave Murphy, aka Allegedly Dave, by clicking the links in the description. The links in the description. And if you haven't already done so, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. And if you love this show, you can support us by purchasing a t-shirt, hat, or sling bag. Just go to www.kgup1065.com/shop. Links are also in the description. 100% of the profits go back into running this show and the radio station KGUP FM Emerge Radio. You can check out what's playing right now by saying Google Ask KGUP FM to play, or if you have Alexa, you can say, Alexa, play KGUP FM. Again, thank you for watching KGUP Presents. Until next time, this is Mikey J. I'm out.
Earth is flat, bro, you need to check your facts. I got high up through the roof, and I landed on the moon flat too. In reality, everything is just in 2D, like a video game from 1983. I'm side scrolling up and down the street, while y'all asleep.